What you're about to witness isn't simply a heated exchange or a personal attack. It's a warning sign of a much larger institutional failure and what happens when law enforcement leadership becomes politicized. At the heart of Representative Jasmine Crockett's remarks was a foundational issue many viewers may not immediately recognize.
Access is recognized.
Man, oh man, there has been so much today, and I truly don't know where to start. So I'm just going to make sure that we start off with a few facts. So a couple of facts that we need to make clear for everyone is that, number one, Director Christopher Wray, when he was appointed to be the head of the FBI, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining, yet we are supposed to believe that
That's
you are
false.
the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't ask you a question. Now, what I want to go
false.
through is to talk about why you are a failure and why, honestly, we just need to tell you bye-bye. I know that you got a little upset and you put on your show for your boss because it seems like you're trying to save your job when it came to talking to Senator Booker yesterday. But let's go through some of your failures. So before you were even confirmed, and I think one of my colleague from Georgia, pointed out that you were already targeting career officials so that you could direct illegal firings. Mind you, these cases that you were so upset about, which are the ones tied to Trump, the cases came through his handpicked FBI director. And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh, you know, we're happy because now we feel safe, I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacists, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues, and frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership, if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you. And if we start talking about the reasons that I lack confidence, we could start with you not just wanting to acknowledge some simple facts. Simple facts like the vast majority of the threats are coming from right-wing extremism. And I know my colleagues have tried to stress this, but I decided that I would maybe do it in a different way. Number one, I have a couple of UCs. Kim Buck, one of multiple Republicans receiving death threats for voting against Jim Jordan as House Speaker.
Without objection.
Another one, Republican lawmaker says she received death threats after voting against Jim Jordan in Speaker's race.
Without objection.
In addition, there was another one from another colleague who now is leaving Congress because they said that they were calling his wife anonymously and threatening her life to the extent that she ended up sleeping with a firearm.
Without objection.
Okay, so here's the deal. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs? You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people. And even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody, and then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap, because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there, even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing except for trying to put on a show for the apprentice, or whatever you want to call him. The day after all of this took place, there was domestic terrorism that was taking place at HBCUs. They were targeted. Yet I didn't hear anything from the FBI about what was going on. And again, black people kept saying, how did we end up in this? Because the numbers are so very clear that white supremacy is a problem. And honestly, I've not heard anything out of you today that makes me believe that you're going to do anything about the white supremacy problem. The one that is leading to children being killed, children being shot, as well as members of their community as they're worshiping in their churches.
The time of the gentlelady.
Credibility and legitimacy. She began by grounding the conversation in an uncomfortable fact that often gets lost in partisan shouting. The FBI director she was criticizing ultimately rose through a chain of decisions that trace back to Donald Trump himself. Her point wasn't to relitigate Trump, but to dismantle the narrative that the current FBI leadership represents some kind of apolitical, professional reset. Instead, she argued, this leadership is deeply shaped by loyalty politics rather than institutional experience. One of the most important educational moments in her comments came when she explained why qualifications actually matter in federal law enforcement. Historically, FBI directors rose through the Bureau or had deep operational experience directly tied to its mission. Crockett highlighted that this director stands apart, not as a reformer from within, but as someone who never served in the FBI at all. That matters because the FBI is not just another agency. It is built on internal norms, investigative culture, and a firewall between politics and prosecutions. When that firewall weakens, public trust collapses. She then moved from credentials to consequences. This is where the exchange becomes less abstract and more human. Crockett tied leadership decisions directly to real-world fear, death threats against members of Congress, threats against families, and even assassination attempts. These are not hypothetical dangers. She cited Republican lawmakers as well as Democrats to show that political violence is no longer isolated to one side. Her argument was simple but powerful. If lawmakers themselves are under constant threat, what does that say about the safety of ordinary citizens? A key teaching moment for viewers came when she addressed extremism. For years, federal data has consistently shown that the most lethal domestic terror threats in the United States originate from right-wing extremism and white supremacist violence. Crockett wasn't offering an opinion. She was referencing patterns confirmed by law enforcement assessments over multiple administrations. Her frustration stemmed from what she described as a refusal by FBI leadership to clearly name that threat, even as evidence piles up. When institutions refuse to call a problem by its name, they cannot solve it. She also questioned priorities, and this is critical to understand. The FBI has finite resources. When leadership says it could take over a decade to fully staff the Bureau, while simultaneously shifting agents to perform immigration enforcement functions traditionally handled by ICE, it raises serious concerns about mission drift. Crockett's argument was that counterterrorism, violent extremism, and public safety are being sidelined in favor of political optics. Her sharpest critique came when she referenced the handling of a high-profile killing. The issue wasn't just the timing of public statements or social media posts, it was the appearance of self-congratulation before facts were clear. She reminded viewers that in this case, accountability came not from elite investigative brilliance, but from parents stepping in and a suspect who had already left a digital trail. That distinction matters because public trust depends on honesty about what law enforcement actually did, not inflated victory laps. Perhaps the most emotional part of her remarks came when she connected these failures to historically Black colleges, churches, and communities repeatedly targeted by violence. For many Americans, especially Black Americans, these threats are not theoretical. They are lived realities. Crockett made it clear that silence from federal leadership after attacks sends a message, and that message is one of neglect. The response from the chair attempted to counter this by listing the director's resume and citing improved statistics. That contrast is instructive for viewers. One side focused on numbers and titles, the other focused on trust, fear, and accountability. Understanding that difference helps explain why this exchange resonated so strongly. This moment wasn't about personality. It was about whether the nation's top law enforcement agency is being led in a way that prioritizes constitutional duty over political loyalty, transparency over performance theater, and public safety over image management. If you want more breakdowns like this that go beyond the shouting and actually explain what's at stake in these hearings, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who wants to understand what's really happening inside Congress and our federal institutions.